Hey, before we get to today's great episode, wanted to let you know of a new exciting thing going on for the Lounge. For the first time since we started this podcast, the Lounge has entered into a partnership with a company that is aligned in how we think. Completely stop gambling. So Betttr is giving away 200 free subscriptions for life to the first 200 users from this podcast. Download Betttr, find the link in the show notes, or searching Betttr in your app store. So it's Betttr, BETTR, quit gambling. Search for that on the App Store or click into the link in the podcast show notes. So I'll see you on Betttr. And now to today's episode. Hey everyone, it's Eric. Welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. Hey, before we begin today's great episode, I just wanted to let you know that we've set up an opportunity for individuals to donate to the show. I've been asked by several people how they can contribute to the great cause. And, this podcast is personal. It's about the raw, often hidden struggle of gambling addiction and the hope that comes with recovery. And, we're really pouring our heart into telling these stories, but producing it and editing it and publishing it, it does take real resources. So if you believe in the mission, even a few dollars can make a big difference. So every donation is going to help keep this project going, hopefully for a long time to come. So if you can donate even a few bucks, we certainly appreciate it. And the GoFundMe link is in the show notes. And thank you for being a part of this. And now we're going to get to today's great episode. Thanks for joining us. Welcome into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. My name is Eric, and I am a compulsive gambler in recovery. The date of my last bet, June 15th of 2021. Good to be back in the lounge with all of you. And today we have a really special milestone episode. This is experience number 20 in the lounge. And I don't know if it means anything, but somebody told me early on when I started this podcast that if you get to 20, that means something. So I'm hoping that person is right and that this is going to mean something special as we go forward. So I can't think of a better person to celebrate experience number 20 with than somebody who has become really special in my life of recovery, a great friend and brother. So I'm going to bring Joe in. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Eric. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for us to share the journey. We have so many great things to cover today with Joe, but we're going to start where we always start, Joe, with every guest, the icebreaker. So you're going to tell us what your recovery song is and a little bit about why you chose it.
First and foremost, I just want to start off just saying thank you so much for this podcast that you bring to all of us. I remember episode 1 and to where it is today. And I think it just does so many wonderful things for the compulsive gambler that still struggles, but then also the compulsive gambler that's in recovery. And just want to, make that extension and let you know that I know a lot goes into this podcast, and we are all super grateful that you do that.
Thank you, Joe. It's been such a rewarding experience every time we do it. So it's well worth the investment in time.
And to answer the question, this song is by Eric Clapton, and it's called Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. Maybe it's somber, but I do enjoy the song because of the lyrics. And I think year one, it was a lot of the feelings I had. I never lived the life of a millionaire, but I did spend all my money and I didn't have any care. And, as I read the lyrics, I just see how he talks about acting like this big shot, but then also when you look around, you realize that it's like kind of all materialistic. And the reason why I chose this song specifically was I was at Eric Clapton's Crossroads Music Festival with my wife, and this was like right after year one. And I heard him play this song live, and then I had to look up the lyrics. And I said, wow, like this is literally like it was one of those, is that one of those moments where you're just like, wow, like you're in recovery, you're experiencing something wonderful with your spouse, partner, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is like what recovery is all about. And even though the song can be a little negative, I think there's so much positive energy how he sings it. And I really enjoyed that. So that's the song I choose.
Awesome. All right, so that's Eric Clapton. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. So everybody can go check out that song if you don't know it and see how Joe relates to that. Thank you for sharing that, Joe. I know it's going to help people. So let's get going. Let's dive into the story of Joe. So let's start kind of back into the days of your growing up, like just kind of set the scene to introduce yourself to people. What was growing up like inside the family unit? And we'll get into kind of where do things maybe start to happen in your life that starts to kind of take you down some paths.
Yeah, so born and semi raised until age 11 in New York. I was born upstate, Catskills area, and then moved to Long Island around age 5. Yeah, I would say the reason why I bring up New York as well is because I think at like age 10 or 11, last night I was just reviewing life and, where did this all begin? Sometimes I just like to remember. And I think like age 10 or 11, like, I used to hear these stories of my grandpa and my grandma. They used to travel around the world and like go to different casinos, and she was a travel agent. So they would like fly all over, and then I would hear them talk about, oh yeah, we had this hotel paid for or this or that, and it was very like romanticized, if you will, and I just was like, oh wow, that's really neat. And occasionally my grandpa would play cards with friends or on his computer at the time. And I remember I was like, oh, grandpa, what are you playing? And he's like, oh, I'm playing blackjack. I'll teach you how to play. And then I think like I learned how to play blackjack from him. And poker, I kept told him he taught me how to play too, because he was like, oh, it's not a lot of cards as well. And I was like, okay, that seems simple enough. And I think that was like the first exposure. And I would play with him a little bit just for fun, or I would just watch him play with friends. And really nothing really happened after that. And then we moved to Texas. I was 11. And then as I got a little bit older, my dad and I are pretty close. I'm really close with both my parents. And my dad would be like, oh, he would tell me kind of these stories of him playing poker in New York. So he would tell me about like playing. He was like, oh my gosh, I remember I would play when I was 18 or 19. And he said, you're playing with guys that are way older than you. And it would be, like these guys didn't want you to win. But I was a pretty good card player. And I said, oh, wow. Like, you hear that coming from your dad too. You're like, oh, that's really cool. And then occasionally my dad and I would play poker and just for fun. And then I just like, I always liked the idea of playing cards just because living in Texas and being 5'6.5" and playing sports and things like that, like I wasn't the best athlete. I mean, I was okay. I was a rec league baseball player and a B team high school football player, and I was okay with that. But had a lot of heart. And whenever you play cards against someone, it doesn't matter if you are the D1 NFL star or you are the B team starting wide receiver. You are equal at that table, and that was a feeling I just loved, and that's something I loved from early ages. And my friends and I would actually play on the weekends in my garage or in someone else's garage. You do like tournament style, $5 buy-in, 18 kids together, drinking Diet Coke and whatever, Kool-Aid and playing some cards on a weekend. It was a lot of fun.
Okay. And this
And
was high school years.
yeah, so this
Okay.
is high. And like for my mom and dad, no gambling was ever present. I never seen them gamble at all. They, both my mom, stay-at-home mom, cooked every meal of my life growing up, and my dad worked 6 days a week, and seventh day kind of hanging out with family, doing some chores outside, eating family dinner on Sunday night. That was kind of like what I saw growing up my whole life. So I never really saw the gambling. It was just a little bit from my grandpa because he's an old school
Mm-hmm.
Italian from New York. Like this, it's kind of in the blood a little, if you will.
Yeah, I think these are very similar stories to a lot of people that we talk to in recovery. where things start. They start early, oftentimes within the family unit, because it's the way to connect with other, family members, and then it, spills over into friendships, and like you're talking about, these innocent games with a bunch of buddies, probably a few bucks here and there, right? It was never really about money, but you're getting into the feelings, like you talked about, that feeling of I'm an equal versus how I felt maybe a little inferior on the playing field because of size, whatever, right? All right, so you're playing these games with buddies, and then kind of where do things go from there that escalate with gambling, or did it not? Did it just kind of lay dormant for a while?
Yeah, so I'll lay the next basically I want to say 10 years because it was just not even present.
Oh,
So those games were just very fun and not during football season. It was just like kind of just, like we get some kids together, play
mhm.
every now and then. And then sometimes we would play in the morning before school if we weren't in football season and stuff like that. But other than that, then I would say some people go out for college. I stayed, went to community college, and then I turned 18 and I lived in North Texas. So Oklahoma is like 30 minutes away. There's a big casino there in Dackersville. Yeah, on my 18th birthday, what did I do? Like me, my dad, and his one of his best friends, three of us, we went, he gave me $100 and I said, oh yeah, we're gonna try playing poker. He's like, he's laughing about it. He's like, chances are they're going to have a lot more chips than us and we're going to get kicked out pretty soon. And we were just laughing about it. And we're like, yeah, let's just see what happens. Let's have fun. Sure
So
enough,
wait,
that's what
was
happened.
the age limit at that casino was 18, not 21?
Yeah, 18.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So it was a fun night. We maybe had something I wanted to eat on my birthday. And then we went there and yeah, sure enough, played three hands and lost. And I
Okay.
was like,
Clock
okay, let's
clean.
yeah, then there's like a picture of me holding like like a Coca-Cola or something or like a soda pop, and I was like, yeah, that's we came for the soda and the picture, and we laughed it off. Nothing happened, and then I would say there's really only one more moment until I'm around 27 years old that was like significant, and it was one night I was like 19 or 20, and me and some of my buddies were in town, and we went up to Deckersville, and we're all had $100. We're playing video roulette. So like all nine of us could sit around the table and we're just kind of just laughing, catching up and playing. And I think everyone's playing really slow. And then for some reason I was like, oh, I want to start betting a little more because if you bet more, you win more. And they're going like red and black, and I'm going like numbers and because I'm just like, oh, I lost pretty fast. And then got another $100 out and lost that pretty fast. And I was like, oh, like I really felt that was the first moment that I felt like, when your ego just gets crushed in gambling and you're like,
Mm.
I'm going to show you. So I let like 30 minutes go by and they were just still playing. And obviously, I don't want to like be a Debbie Downer. And I think I went to the bathroom. On my way back, I said, let's just pull out $200 and see if we can get it all back. Right.
Mhm.
And I sit down, and then I have this like crazy idea. Oh yeah, nobody's been winning on the zeros. I'll just bet $1 on both zeros for like the next 20 hands, and if it hits, it'll be whatever 40 something dollars or whatever. So that ends up happening, and then a few times, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh!" And here
You're the
I am.
man.
Like looking back on it, I broke even, right? And
Right.
and I left, and I was like, but I did get that feeling, and this is why this part of the story is important because I did get that feeling of a rush of like, you're on that journey of losing money, but then you win, and you didn't think you were gonna win, and that is where I think you have that feeling, that like euphoric feeling of, oh my gosh, like that was I've never experienced that before. That was a true dopamine. And even on the way home, like I remember we're just like eating Whataburger and laughing and listening to our favorite music. And we're just like, oh my gosh, that was so crazy. And we were like 19, 20-year old kids. Like,
Hmm.
and literally, life goes on. And I honestly don't go to a casino again until I'm like whatever. Like maybe we go here and there, like just with pennies, $20 and stuff. So
Hmm.
now to give a little story about myself, like I go to school in the Midwest for pursue a career in hospitality and go to a great hospitality school in the Midwest. And then I just dive into the hospitality industry
Mhm.
and just like go hard in work and school and do really well and just working in different hospitality institutes and restaurants and just climbing my way to the top and literally think nothing of it. And the Midwest is a very important part of my story. I ended up spending 6 years of my life there, maybe six plus, and met my wife there at a restaurant. And and we're married today, a little over 3 years. It'll be 4 years in December. And basically, gambling's never a thing. We're just pushing in our careers. One time we go to Vegas for a huge culinary event, and yeah, we spent a night. We spent like an hour there after the
Mhm.
whole event, and whatever. Still same thing. Lose $100 and just have a good time with my friends, and that's really what it is.
So wait, let
And
me stop and ask a question though, because I want to
yeah,
go back to what you were talking about when you experienced that rush that you talked about from the prior experience. So when you were in this situation, fast forwarding several years, and now you're just doing it very randomly, did you never get that same rush and like remember back to what it felt like and trying to chase that feeling again? Did that not really present itself? At least, well, we know eventually it does, but at this point in time, not really.
yeah. Sorry to glaze over that, but
Yeah.
working in the hospitality industry at that time, you don't like, and not having money and paying for everything. Like, I didn't have two nickels to rub together for a long time, and I'm just like, of course, I like that feeling, and I would think about it from time to time, and I would even play like with Zynga or whatever Zynga poker with friends online on Facebook and stuff like like we would do things like that occasionally. It would be, oh yeah, hey, let's play poker on Facebook together or something, like me and my best friend or something. And
Mhm.
but really, like literally, just laser focused on career, laser focused on life, and falling in, just literally falling in love with who's now my wife. I just wasn't even thinking about it. And even that night in Vegas, I was just like, I just worked so hard for this competition that like I lost this $100, and I'm just like, let's just go upstairs and go to bed. I just didn't really think anything of it. So
Got
it's
it.
kind of, it is kind of crazy how I do end up becoming a compulsive gambler after not really like
Yeah,
falling for
because
those.
you're in your mid to late 20s at this point in time you're referencing, yeah. And so, yeah, because what you're describing is a very, we'll just say, normal life that many people go through with, school that was pretty normalized with friends. There wasn't like trauma going on in life. And then you go off to school, you're into your career, you meet who would eventually become your wife, and life is just good, right? You're just in it, and there's no like behaviors. And now even beyond gambling, you weren't, for like stress release or whatever, with all the schooling, and you didn't dive into like any other kinds of, whether it be alcohol or any drug stuff, or did any of that enter your life in any way?
Chicago is the bars close at like 4 a.m. there and 5 a.m. and situation there. So like, yeah, we would drink pretty late when I was in my early 20s. Like it's like what you do, like all the local hospitality industry, they hang out at bars and you drink. And I mean, I am not someone that is a good drinker. I'm really not good at like holding my liquor. But other than that, really, no, like no, like,
No
yeah,
vices. There
yeah, no
wasn't like
vices.
a, I get, okay, just living my life, working hard,
Just
met this
living,
wonderful
working hard.
person. Okay.
And then we move. We moved to. We end up moving to Australia for a little bit, working there, come back, and then kind of like plan this move to Northern California. And even there, like things are moving along. By now, it's like 2018. Been in the hospitality industry for like a little over 5 years, or a little over 6 years now. So really getting pretty experienced, kind of working at like one of the best places in the world to work at now in Northern California. My wife's working there as well. And then COVID happens 2019. And that was kind of a weird moment. And I think it's important to talk about because COVID was kind of what started it, I would say. And it started it because of free time. Like working in the hospitality industry at a very high level, it's very intense. It's like every day is like a big stage, and you have accolades you're protecting and things like that. And then whenever COVID happened, like we were forced to not do that. It became hard to do anything. And hospitality industry was very much just kind of at a standstill. And yeah, there was like to go food and things like that, but like where we worked, there wasn't that. So we would kind of help out people that were doing. And then it was like, we don't know when we're going to reopen. We don't know what that's going to look like. And then, you kind of get that like payout, like the government paid out a lot of people. And, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the government or state of California. Someone did, right? So now I'm sitting on like this like lump sum of money in my bank account, which is like, significant. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, pay off some student loans or whatever, or just like, who knows if we're going to go back to work? Like, we'll just save the money. And then also around that time, I get engaged. So, like my wife, a few years older than me, a lot more responsible than me, like she's good at saving money. So she has like some money. And I always felt this pressure of like, wow, like she has some money saved up. I don't. We kind of go 50-50 on a lot of things because we're both just like in the hospitality industry and like just doing this thing called life together. And I think it wasn't until we got engaged and I looked at how much it cost to first buy that ring and save for that. And then also just like a wedding and how much that cost. Like I was like, gosh, that's really expensive. I can't believe that. Like how do people pay for this? Like, and I think that is what really started the like thoughts of, I wonder like if, oh man, poker was always fun. You're pretty good at it. Like I wonder if you like started playing. And
Like the
I,
get rich quick
like
schemes.
get rich quick scheme. Yeah, and like, oh hey,
Okay.
let's just have some fun. Like I'm responsible. What's $20, $40? And
Okay.
then, so really kind of just mute those feelings. 2020 comes and then a significant moment happens. So, we're back, restaurants rocking and rolling, and we're thriving in the hospitality industry. And then like where we worked at burned down. And that was like very difficult because like at this point I poured like over 2 years into this place, like got promoted up to good role where I was like a goal I've set for myself for
Mm-hmm.
many years. And I was just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And they're like, well, we're just gonna like, we're still gonna keep you guys on payroll, but we just don't know what's gonna happen. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. And my wife was working the whole time because of her role. So now I'm like, okay, I gotta stay busy. So I just started doing what a lot of people did during that time, Instacart and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, like staying busy.
Yep.
I was still getting paid, but I had all this free time. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this free time? And I helped out restaurants and sister restaurants and friends in the industry. And we stayed really busy doing that. But I mean, I would just do this and I had this free time and I was like, oh, I might as well make extra money. And then I would like, I'd go fishing a lot and I just love the outdoors. I spent a lot of time in Northern California exploring, going to San Francisco, exploring all the different parks and everything. It was really great. But then, I had this like random idea. Oh, hey, what if I just like played, what if I started like to gamble here and there? And it was like really not a lot. It was $25 here, $50 here on a poker website. And then, it really wasn't great. It wasn't really winning, or sometimes I would, or it'd be that long game of playing a tournament and you're like, I just spent 3 hours of my life for what feels like $10, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then a significant thing happened where our boss is like, "Hey, we're gonna go basically pop up in this really nice resort for a few months, like 3 months, and we're gonna do what we did in Northern California in this Southern California resort." And they're like, and we want you to be part of that team, and we're gonna like give you a big pay raise as well. And I was like, "Oh wow, that's crazy, cool." And I was like so excited about that. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like everything is gonna, like this is just the perfect next step. And then it was, and then like things are going along. We're on like month 2 out there in Southern California, and just the services are great. The team's great. We're just really doing well. But I was alone out there. And I think, like what's that question? Have you ever celebrated?
Any good fortune by a few hours of gamble.
Yeah, have you ever done that? And I answer yes to that. So that's exactly what happened.
You
Yeah,
got a
I was
good
just
fortune.
so good
And
for. I was on top of the world. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never climbed the
right,
highest I have in my career.
right,
I'm alone on a Friday night, and who? Hey, I'm getting paid a little bit more. Why not?
right, right.
And I started to
Double down, so to
double
speak,
down,
right? That's right.
and like started to play a little bit online, and then and then I remember one night I just was like, I always played heads up poker. Like it was just like I like that thrill, like really fast one on one. So so that's what I used to play. And then I remember one night I'm going back and forth with this same guy, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're like passing off $100 bills to each other, and then I saw this like option. It's like a little window that popped up from that casino, and it said like, "Oh, play head to head or play blackjack." And then you could like
Mm,
play blackjack while you're actually like playing heads up poker.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I started to do that, and I was like, "Yeah, it's like $25 bets or lower amounts." And then I was like, "Oh, I'm just so annoyed. I just want to go to bed, but I haven't won any money yet." So then
The chick. Here comes the chick. Okay, wait. Let me. I have a question though for you,
go.
because your wife is still up in Northern California at this point. You're down
Yes.
in Southern California. Now you're doing this gambling. Was she aware of what was going on? Like, did you have shared accounts where when you did something, she knew about it, or were you now starting to go down this rabbit hole of lying?
Yeah, it was just we had separate accounts, and it was just kind of one of those things. Like it was so fresh that no one even knew any. Like she had no idea. I didn't tell her. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna play poker," and she knew I liked to play like on that Facebook thing.
Mhm.
So it was just like I didn't tell her I was like losing money, or I didn't tell her I was like playing for money because this wedding was like something that we had to save for, and
Right,
also like trying to finish paying off student loans and stuff was also important.
right.
Um,
Right. So it starts with this is important though, I think, in the journey of the story because you're starting out lying. Right.
yes. Oh yeah.
Even in the early times, you're already building that behavior of lying and yeah, cheating your way through it. Right.
100%, like white lying about the darnest things, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So that night, whatever, I'm playing, and then I saw this credit card deposit option, and I was like, that's cool. I have a big credit card limit. Let me do that. And then I deposit like $500, and I was like, let's just play. Let's go for it, right? And then I lose $500 like between the blackjack and the poker, and I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my gosh, how irresponsible. You just lost $500.
Mm.
And then, the next day goes by, I finish up Saturday service, which is always the biggest day. And I think all day I was just thinking about that. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so mad I lost. But like, and that's like I told you about that first time. Ego was just hitting hard. Like, you're gonna, like we're gonna get them back. We're gonna play smarter. Maybe I'm not good enough to play the $100 heads up. Maybe I just got to go down to $50 because I always win in the $50. And then, that feeling of like looking at my credit card state like limit and just knowing that I always, like I had this like large amount of money as like leverage. I think that was where I did that. Like you have the angel on the left side or the right side and the devil on the right side. That's where like my hands kind of went together, and I was like, no one's gonna know what I'm doing right now. And that's when I started to I think that next day it was like $600 and I lost, and I was just like, oh my gosh, $1,100. That is a life changing amount of money. And and it was for me. Like that's a
Yep.
lot of at that moment in my life, that's a lot of money. Like
Right.
that's almost a month of rent right there. So it was a big deal. And then I think my wife was coming on Monday, and I think, it was now the weekend. I probably played a few more times. And I think that's just what started the cycle. It was that. And then she would come and I pretended like it was nothing. And I was like, yeah, what's a few $1,000s? I got this promotion, and that it's my money. I could lose it. Right. And I just really just kept it under wraps, living the lie, as we would say.
Yep. Do you remember at the time like feeling though the shame and the guilt already, or had you kind of like blocked it, buried it because you really wanted to keep going? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think I just threw it in a box and was like, I'm a busy guy and I'm not going to be bothered with this. This is something future Joe will think about and worry about. And let's just keep living the life we got to live and try and put this, and hey, maybe I'm not the best at that. Let's just not do it for a little bit. And that's
Okay.
kind of what happened. And that's kind of what it looked like in the beginning. It was like, this is now 2021 and it's February. It's January of like 2021. So
Hmm.
so this is kind of like where we're at right now.
Okay. And she still has no idea what's going on. Okay. So then what starts to happen after that?
And then so basically what happens is between I want to say January to June, it's just like we go back to Napa and I'm working I'm back in the kitchen working full time like with the intention to reopen what has burned down. So yeah, I'm working 5 days a week and some days are longer than others. Sometimes we're doing some private events, but like it's not the workload of, working a service every night until 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. So I'm still not kind of feeling that competitive pushing every single day. I'm still working, but it's just different. Like I'm leaving at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 5 o'clock, or maybe we have an event and I'm leaving at 11 o'clock. But there's time there to kind of have some free time. So what's happening now is like sometimes I'm not working, and then I have some free time, and Lydia's working until very late at night, and like so I just start playing here and there in my like free time, and that is whenever I just start to do a lot of damage because now I'm justifying playing with, okay, you only have this much money to bring to the table in regards to a wedding.
Hmm.
Like, how are you gonna afford to even pay for half of this wedding? You can't. You literally can't. Like, so then that justifies the gambling, and I'm like, well, I gotta win because not only do I have to pay off my student loans, but I also have to pay for half of this wedding. So like, I had this like amount of money that I like needed to make,
Wow.
and I'm just like, poker's not even a thing anymore. I'm like, it's too slow. I'm literally going on this poker website playing blackjack, and I'm just losing. Like, I mean, my bets are large. I mean, they're like significantly larger. I've broken out of the $500. Now it's like $500 a hand, and it's just this back and forth. This like life is crazy. This driving around and gambling like while I'm driving. Like what? Like what the heck is that? Like, I've never even like, who am I becoming? Like fishing. I don't even want to go fishing anymore. I would go set up my fishing gear and everything, and then I wouldn't even fish. I would just be on my phone gambling.
Mm.
I would like the first time I lost my hook or something, it would be like, I'm not spending 20 minutes rebaiting up and tying another hook. I'm just gonna go sit in my car and go play, and it just became this like escape period of time. It got to the point where I blinked my eyes and I had to take a loan, a personal loan for the first time, just to pay off the credit card. And I said, hey, if I take this personal loan, it will just, I will, my credit score is great. I'll just pay it off. And then I'll just say, hey, it's for the next 2 years, you're paying off $250 a month. And that's it. Right? What's the big deal?
Hmm.
250 or whatever that dollar amount was, right?
Hmm.
So that's what happened. And then it was kind of like this moment where I'm like, oh, we're over it. We're done. I'm done. Like, that's it. I'm done gambling. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to stop. Like, I have a good life. Remember, you
Hmm.
have a good life. Like, you're engaged and all this good stuff. But yeah, it doesn't stop there at all.
All right. We're going to take a break there, and then we're going to come back. And now we're going to get to the place where this escalates very fast, and Joe finds himself in a really, really dark place. And then we'll lead up to all the good stuff of recovery. There's some amazing stories after that. So we'll take a break and come back in the gambling recovery. Welcome back into the Gambling Recovery Lounge. All right. When we left off, Joe was starting to talk about how the gambling was starting to escalate, got to the point of a personal loan to pay off credit cards. And now he's working his way to try to figure out how he's going to pay for his part of the wedding. So what now, Joe, starts to happen?
Yeah. So now what starts to happen is I'm one loan, I'm one loan deep, and I'm kind of at peace with the fact, or I don't know if it's at peace or just compartmentalizing it, throwing it in a box and saying, you know what, I'm not really going to think about this other than that one payment I have to make every month. And I'm just going to get back to living this good life I have. And that happens for about a week. And then that feeling of I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go out like that. What? Like I'm not going out like that. Like even though I got even though I like self excluded from that website, there's other websites, there's other things, and I said, you know what? I never actually explored the slots part of the online
Oh boy.
gameplay.
Yep, here we
So
go.
so maybe what I need to do is just change my game. Maybe I'm just not a good blackjack player. I think I am a little radical, making
Um,
large bets even when I'm up.
Now, oh, I have a question for you. You mentioned self-exclusion from the website. So did you had recognized this was getting out of hand for yourself, and you felt like you couldn't control yourself if you needed to go through an actual self-exclusion process?
Oh, I mean, I think whenever I took that personal loan and I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, oh my gosh, like you are not good at this. Like you are like you have a problem losing, and
And what
you
was that exclusion process like? Which I think is important because there's a lot of people that are listening that probably are in the early stages of their journey, or maybe they're not even in recovery yet and they are struggling with how to stop. So, can you just talk for a minute about what you had to do on that website to self exclude?
Yeah, so the language of self-exclusion is different from website to website. A lot of them will say, we give you a 24-hour cooldown period, and then after the 24-hour cooldown period, you have to reach out back to the chat, or you have to go through those prompt of questions and then self-exclude again. A lot of other websites actually make it harder, where even after you try to self-exclude, there will be some loophole where you actually didn't properly self-exclude. But for this website, I did self-exclude. I wasn't able to play there anymore,
Okay.
and they did take like driver's license and everything, so I was really not able to play there anymore. And so that's kind of what that looked like. But it
Okay.
didn't mean that there wasn't, whatever the other
Oh,
online slot,
hundreds of them.
hundreds of them
Yeah.
offshore. Yeah. So that's kind of what happened next.
Okay. All right. So now you start another site. So then what happens?
Yeah. So I guess something I didn't really mention to anyone, or I did mention, but my wife didn't really know I was gambling for money at all. So I would do the damage when I was either alone or she was sleeping, and it would be either like very early in the morning or in the middle of the night, when I knew that this person is working very hard through working hours of a day, and there's no way she's going to wake up, no way that anything could ever happen.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what started to happen, is like I
Okay.
would just keep playing, and I would play when I was alone, and I would play whenever I knew there was no way that anyone would see what was going on. I'd play when I was driving, which probably wasn't very safe.
Mhm.
And this wasn't, I was a little more like, I was like, I did run into the barbed wire pretty hard that first time, so I was a little hesitant with the amounts I played, and I said, well, maybe something crazy will happen and I'll win a large amount. And then I remember it just, I even would like this fishing thing was a thing I did a lot. So that was always an excuse to like either stay out later or wake up stupid hours early in the morning at like 4 a.m. and like go fish before I started work
Mhm.
at 8 a.m. So I would do that a lot. And then I just like kept losing to the point where I was like, I think I need another loan. So I took another loan. I was, oh my gosh, like, geez, okay, well now it's just another 300, whatever amount of money per month for the next 3 years. And I was
Right.
like, okay, now I really like really needs to stop. And then I started to look at 12-step rooms. But like, Northern California is very small compared to Southern Southern California. So I
Mhm.
was said like, there's no way I will ever show my face to anyone. So like
Mhm.
maybe I should try and start going to like Zoom meetings or something like that. Cause I just
How did you even just to have the awareness of going to a 12-step meeting? Because at this time you're what, 28, 29, something like that at that time?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah,
So
20 yeah.
and without if you didn't have this or know people who had been through it, like where does that's not the first thing somebody's going to typically think of to go to a 12-step meeting. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
but I think there's been some I used YouTube and I was like gambling addiction because I
Mm,
knew I had an addiction because I just loved it so much and I was
okay.
I have an issue. Like this is an issue and that's whenever I saw these like, they're like kind of like these they're probably still there. Like these black and white videos and like is a guy or usually a guy that lost everything and lost his house and lost his business and lost his family. And I would just watch those videos alone, and they're like 40 minutes. And
Mm,
I would just like I would honestly come to tears when I watched them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the path I'm headed down if I don't shape up.
wow.
And then,
And you were continuing to be able to keep all this from your wife. The money part, the loans, the activity, the secrecy, you just continued to figure out how to dodge it.
yeah, I did. I showed face just for a really long time. I just dodged, always
Yeah.
paid for all the finances and everything. So really, I kind of like would just be like, oh, this is how much rent is, and to that point, I wasn't ever taking advantage of her finances. I just wasn't bringing as much to the table as I could have. And then when it came time for the wedding, and like I kind of like pushed that thing off for as long as I could because I was like, oh my gosh, it's COVID. But then also I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't have money. Like I was like, either let's get married right away or like, she's like, what if we waited and we had a big wedding and we looked at some venues and I was just like, there's no way I'll be able to afford it, especially now. And then, and I still like, I mean, this is like where those like the thick parts of what we do in addiction happens. Like I would go to these viewings and I would like, I would be there and I'd be like, oh yeah, maybe we could do that, or like oh, yeah, it's in the budget. And then, and my plan for that was like whatever it is she wanted, I'm just gonna take another loan because hey, it seems to be working and getting paid more money. I'll just work really hard for the next 5 years, and
Mm-hmm.
then after that, I will tell her, and I'll be done gambling, and I could just throw this in a box and burn it, and then live the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Sounds
Um,
like a reasonable plan.
Sounds like a reasonable plan, right?
You
But
you just
like,
weren't a reasonable person to
yeah.
execute on a reasonable plan.
So that worked for the most part. And then, and I still was like, whatever wedding we want to do, we're going to do. I'm not going to rob this woman that literally is the most selfless person I've ever met in my life. I'm not going to let her have a wedding she doesn't want. Like, whatever it is, we're going to do it. And that's what we did. And we had a beautiful wedding. It was during COVID. And there was like plans of the place we worked at reopening. So the only thing I was adamant about was like, we have to get married before the end of the year. Like it has to happen.
This is
And
2022.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was like the thing. I was just like, okay, whatever happens, we have to get married before end of the year. Like, cause we just, when we open what we're, that establishment, like we can't take off work. And that was just the people pleaser in me and also in her of just like, you're right. Like we have to be there. Like we're key players of the team. And so stupid that I thought like that. And I even led, our home like that. And that those are the moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But we end up getting married, have a great wedding. It's very small and in Southern California, everything was great. But I'm still like, I'm knee deep in it. And I'm like, I think even around the day of our wedding, like day before or day of or something, like
Mhm.
I'm still like getting those like promo codes and rewards. And it's just like a part of me. And it's just like that annoying part of you, of your routine every day when you're alone, where you're just like,
Yep.
like you're living your life. And I am someone that believes in God and I believe in Jesus Christ. And I did always feel this pressure of like, oh, I'm letting God down so much. Like I just
Mhm.
am like, I'm having my cake and I'm eating it too. I'm pretending I'm living a life to all these people, but I'm really just like doing whatever I want every single day. And I was just becoming so disgusted with myself. And and yeah, obviously wedding was amazing and it was just still the best day of my life, but like I just was living this life and the pressure was just really starting to build and I was becoming very hot and cold, and she was definitely the person that got that more than other people. It was, everyone else got this like great version, which is a very common thing we hear in among compulsive gamblers. Everybody gets that great version, and then that person at home kind of gets that like really like ugly, low patience, like exhausted, not sleeping version of you, and that's kind of what was getting reciprocated.
Now, she, because you start these behavior outputs and she's getting the brunt of it, did she at some point sit you down and just say, like, Joe, what is going on? Like, your behavior is so different than the Joe that I know. Did that happen? And what, you lied your way through it, obviously, for some period of time.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, she was so busy with opening like a few new concepts
Mhm.
that like she would say it in spurts, but she was just so exhausted to the point where like she would just like eat dinner and go to bed and then wake up and do it again and wash and repeat. And like, we were very diligent workers and we were really trying to like, we worked together as well. I don't know if I mentioned that, but like,
Yep.
so we were just, she was very busy and I really took advantage of that. Like I knew, hey, she could yell as much as she wants, but I know she's going to go to work and I know, and I know that of course I'm working too, but I will have that little bit of time when I'm alone or something like that.
Right.
And I really took advantage of that.
Yep.
And then let's say the next pivotal thing that happens is like I'm going into these rooms and I start making these like while I'm going into these rooms, I always like running as my like exercise of choice. And I'm just having these like reflective times and I'm
You're
just
you're talking about, when you say rooms, you're talking about Zoom G8
yeah,
meetings.
Zoom,
Got it. Okay,
Zoom
got it.
meetings. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to those like a few days a week actually, and like twice a week. And they were like it was the one in Oakland on Zoom, and it was like I would just like log in and I wouldn't show my face. I
Mm.
even made a fake name and just like
You want to tell the audience the fake name because it's just the
yeah,
funniest thing.
fake name was Justin Jefferson. So
Justin Jefferson.
which I think is a football player. I'm
It
pretty
is a
sure.
football.
So it's just like funny. And I remember like the first time I went to the meeting, I was on the audio for the moment. It was like a sunshine meeting. So it was 7:30 and
Mm.
I think my wife slept until maybe 8 and she left for work at 9. So like by 7:30 to 8, you're kind of like diving into the shares. And I really didn't share. And they were like, oh, you've been, someone reaches out and they're like, kind of like how these like 12-step meetings work. They're like, someone reaches out and they're like, have you been to a meeting before? Are you a compulsive gambler? Have you have you done the 20 questions? And I would just be like, yes, yes, yes. Like, of course I did the 20 questions. And like,
Right.
and I didn't even know what the 20 questions were. And like, it wasn't until almost half a year later that I actually learned what they are. But still
Right.
to this day, never actually read the 20 questions, like, in a meeting like you're supposed to as a
Right.
newcomer.
Right.
So it's kind of is
Go
like
through the
kind of
pain.
funny. Like looking back at
We
that,
should
it's
just
kind
do that at one of these random upcoming meetings. We're going to just do almost 3 years later. Let's do the 20 questions
of
with
yeah.
The Joe, the not newcomer.
And so then what happens is like I'm kind of doing these like voice memos on my phone because I'm like, I know I'm gonna beat this gambling thing. And I went to recovery and I'm like, all happy go lucky, I'm gonna get through this and going to these meetings. And I just, you just don't feel like, like when you're showing up to something, but you're not really doing, you're ignoring a lot of parts of it. So you're just kind of there. And that's kind of how I was like living what I wanted to be recovery. I wasn't telling anyone. No one knew what I was going through. And and I wasn't even recovering in a great way. So it just was inevitable that another relapse was bound to happen. And I wasn't even saying like, oh, I'm 10 days clean. Like, yeah, I kept track, but like, I think I still placed a few bets off of the like bonuses you get every week online and stuff. So,
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm 10 days or I'm 12 days, whatever it was. I think I got up to like 30 days at one point. And that was not 30 real days. It was like 30 days of like maybe placing one bonus bet or something, like,
right.
And then what would happen in the next step in the story is like my wife and I, we go to this wedding in New Orleans, one of my best friends, and we just are like, what are we doing in Northern California? Like what are we doing? Like we've been working for this company for 4 years. We're like, I think it's time for a change. Like we're not really sure what's going to happen next. And and then we kind of have that like, like come together moment where we're just like, yeah, we're open for a change. Like we still haven't gone on our honeymoon. By this time, it's like 4 or 5 months after we gotten married, and we're just like, we want to go on our honeymoon. There isn't much progress with this place we're working at. Let's just like leave and go on our honeymoon, like, and then we'll figure out the rest. And I'm like, cool. And in my head, I'm like, I could kind of afford it, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't really have a lot of money saved up to the point where like I need to work to pay the bill, And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like, cause I knew it was the right thing I needed to do, but there was also that double life I'm living where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like, when's this next shoe gonna drop? And then like out of nowhere, like literally our last like 2 weeks, someone reaches out to me and they're like, hey, we have an opportunity in Los Angeles. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they're like, I start talking. I meet with the owner and they're like, yeah. And I find out about the pay and it's like, a huge increase in pay. And I was just like, okay, when's the time? And they're like, well, August. And it's like, our last day of work was like end of July 22nd or something. And they're like, yeah, we want you to start working August 1st. So I'm like, and I tell Lydia this plan at like July 16th. And I'm like, all right, we're going to move to Los Angeles. I need you to find us an apartment. This is where I'm going to work. They're going to pay us this much money and they're going to pay me this much money. It's going to be great. And in my head, the reason why I'm like so crazy about it is like, first of all, it is a good opportunity. But second of all, I'm like, I'm going to get rid of that like gambling debt, like
right. Just wipe it away and you never have to think about it or talk about it.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, in 1 year it's gonna be gone, and then I'll tell her, and then we'll get back to that happy life.
So you were kind of building this mentality of, at some point you have to tell her the truth, but you're not going to do it until the life, like you make it in life, and you are a success, where you were seeing yourself as a failure and becoming the worst version of Joe. Is that about how you'd frame it up?
Yeah, I was like, I don't want her to see me as a degenerate. Like, I want her to see me as a guy that had a problem and took care of it. And now is like, I have a high salary and we're not in debt and we're ready to move forward in life. And I think that is where a compulsive gambler will just never be like, maybe the 0.001% can do it on their own, but I will say like it takes a village. And it really starts with telling the one person that you need to tell. And who that person is for you, I know, but like who that person is for other people, we know, right? But if you could tell every single person other than that one person, but if you don't tell that one person that you're doing life with, like you are never gonna get through it. And you might be that unicorn, but it's gonna be really hard. So
yeah.
So I think what happens next, or I know what happens next, is we go on this little family trip. We go see our nephew and brother-in-law, sister-in-law. Great trip. I'm like, this is perfect reset. Not really thinking about gambling, but I'm really not stopping gambling. I'm just kind of like doing it on my own, like little bit here and there. But now I'm like, oh, big salary incoming. Who cares? Like it is what it is, right? So I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna move to Los Angeles. I'm going to go take some college classes. I'm going to go finish learning Spanish as a second language. I'm going to work this job. I'm going to start playing softball again. I'm just going to be busy with all these fun things, you know, and like, and that is kind of what happens for a little bit. But then, like, shortly once I get comfortable at work, which happened quick, my wife had a lot of traveling to do. She was going back to the Midwest or going on a girls' trip or doing whatever. So I found myself with some alone time.
And
And
you're now, this is the summer of 22, right?
yep. So this is
Okay.
August 22.
Got it.
So, you know, loans are taken out, new apartment secure, job is going well, life is in session. And yeah, so then what happens is just like I have that free time and I just, you know, I think it's really starting to hit me. Wow. Like, even though you're making more money, you're just kind of like staying still. And this is what it looks like for the next few years because this job is a big job. It takes a lot of your week. You can't really do a lot of other things. So you just gotta like do this for the next few years. And I think like that really messed me up. I was like, no, like I came here to deal with this and get it away as fast as possible. So I said, I know how I'm gonna get rid of this fast. I'm gonna go back to online casinos.
Oh,
And that's
man.
and that was the option I took again. And you know,
Now,
I still
had
was,
you stopped going to those Zoom meetings at
yeah,
this
I just
point?
stopped completely. It was
Got it.
like,
Got
I'm busy.
it.
I don't need it.
Right.
One day I will, you know, but like right now, why do I need to? I'm working a
Mm,
lot. I have all the school classes now. I'm taking the Spanish thing once a week. I'm playing softball Sunday afternoon. I'm
got it.
busy. Like there's no need for me to go to a recovery room.
Got it.
And then it's just like I really didn't have free time, but man, it would be if she was maybe out of town or something. It would, or even if she was home, it would be me going to that laptop when it's pitch black in our apartment and just playing. And then it
Hmm.
became on the weekend when we're at a grocery store, we're at IKEA, or we're at the mall, and I'm treading
Uh,
water behind her,
uh,
you know, on my
I
phone.
know that feeling. Oh God, that brings me back to all the. Oh, yep, I
And
get
it's
it.
just
Or going into the bathroom,
going into the
and yeah,
bathroom and
yeah.
just,
Or and she'd be talking to you, and you have no idea what she said because you were gambling. You're like, well,
yeah.
what? Huh? That kind of thing.
Yeah. And through that, yeah, you know, and that happened a lot. And it would just be the time we were together, I'm just like, I'm really busy. I need to plan this menu. I need to do this on my phone. And that was true, right? But like
Right.
I think what happens is you're not we're working in the 1% of time when which is great. We could get it done fast, but then we're like that other 99% we're really participating in activities we shouldn't be. And then we're like gaslighting I was gaslighting my wife and being like,
Yep.
no, like I need to do this. Like I'm providing.
Yep.
Like this is just what it is, you know. If and like, but then at the same time, I'm there for her, and I'm like, oh, like you don't need to. Like we're only gonna be here for a few months, so like I don't even want you to like. I don't want you to get a job. I just, you know, like we're also in the stage of like starting a family or trying to, and like I'm like I just want you to like focus on that. And she's like, well, oh, well, that's great because you know we do have some fertility complications. So it was actually good. Like she was like, okay, yeah, I will start looking into those things. But then when I would lose, I would be like, oh my gosh, and I feel all this pressure and like and you're not working and this and that. And she's like, wait, like I'm not working because I don't want to work. I'm not working because you specifically told me not to work. And I'm like, I'm like, you know, and that's where things just really start to get messy. Like this is when
Yeah.
things get messy,
The
and
walls are closing in on the lies,
yeah,
and now it's the and she's starting to creep. It feels like she's now starting to creep towards the truth,
the truth.
even
Yeah,
though she didn't even know she had to uncover this truth.
that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Riveting.
So, you know, as the compulsive gambler, the, you know, that very crafty person that I have now become, just a wonderful liar and all of the above, right? Just lying to everyone. No one in my life knows about this thing. And at one point, I do tell my sister, and she knows about it. And then that's kind of like I tell her, and she kind of kind of make her wear that, like, and she has to like hold on to that. And that was actually a lot of pressure for her to
Mm.
like have a relationship with my sister or with my wife. and just and other people that we both knew very well. Like my sister's close in age. We have a lot of the same friends. We're very close. We're very close with both of our parents. So I think it was like kind of hard for. I think I put my sister in a really tight spot of
Were
like.
you fully honest of how bad it was with her?
I told her.
Okay.
I told her, and I think she even probably knew before the wedding. I don't, or maybe it was after the wedding. I don't know. But yeah. I made her like hold on to it and like throw it in a bag, and she would be like, I don't even know if I could even like when I would talk to her, she was like, I don't even know if I could bring this up right now. Like, how are you doing with it? And it was just like
Mm,
it wasn't very fair. Like and looking back, it was that, we do a lot of selfish things in our
right.
addiction. And that was a very selfish thing, making her kind of wear that and hold that, and just also not really be able to even be there for me, like the great sister that she is. And but to circle it back in now is things are getting out of hand, and now that compulsive gambler that is very crafty and likes everything their way all the time and kind of freaks out whenever it doesn't go that way was just starting to like have a lot of things not go their way, right? Like things were just not going how I planned. Like I had to withdraw from the classes because I just couldn't even do the homework or pay attention. My Spanish class meetup were kind of like, let's learn what we can learn in an hour, and I'll just pay you whatever you're asking for. And I never did the homework I was assigned. It was one of those things, looks good on paper, but like really just a waste of money. And that's what that became. And eventually I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then, yeah, and then eventually I was like, lost a few, Fridays are always great whenever you get paid, right? You're like getting after it. I'm still paying all the bills, everything on time, and there's nothing bad there, but like things are just getting out of hand. And I'm just like, dude, like this is back. This is back badder than ever. And there's one specific moment where the rock bottom is, and that was it was like November 3rd or 2nd. And I'm like gambling. I get home from work, I'm gambling. I'm like right whenever I get home, like go on the laptop and like, there's these websites where you can like play these like different slots, and you can do like unlimited amount of spins. So I kind of like found this way to have like 5 different tabs open at once, running 5 different slots, like all at once, all unlimited. And then I wouldn't come back to the laptop unless every single screen was on the bonus play. And then I would be like, okay, now I'm gonna like have this crazy dopamine rush of watching them all win a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like it was like stupid.
So you would have multiple sessions going on, slot machines are running, and you're walking away from it and
I
doing
would just
whatever
walk away,
else. And it
100%.
just keeps, oh my God. That
So it's
that's a
just like I would have like my AirPods in, and I'm just like really listening and like doing what I would want to do, like at home or
wow.
so I wouldn't even be like present for it. I just would listen until I heard that constant spin stop. And then once I heard a standing screen, I knew, okay, I have 5 bonuses. Now I can go play bonus play and go see a large amount of money being made, right?
Hmm.
And that didn't always happen, but occasionally it did. And then one time I'm playing it, and then I locked the keys inside the house, and I like have the AirPods in, and I
Oh
lock the keys inside the house. And Lydia's
no.
like in the Midwest, and I'm like, I need to get inside. And this was like the first moment where I'm like, or not the first moment, but this is the pivotal moment where I'm like, you're acting like a junkie right now. Like
Yeah.
this is disgusting, like so I legit like
Like you
breaking
can't even recognize who you are as a human being.
I can't even get inside my apartment to
Yeah.
get to my laptop. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to get inside. It's Friday night at 10 p.m. Like, I'm off the next 2 days. Like, what am I going to do?
Who is this person?
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't call the leasing office because it's like, they're not going to come. Like, they won't come until tomorrow. And
Right.
so then I'm like, great idea. I'm going to break the window of my apartment. And then I'm going to literally call the leasing office and say, I need to file a police report. Somebody broke into my
Oh,
apartment.
this is classic.
So that's what I do. And I legit like break in
Did you
glasses.
break with your fist or did you use some?
I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. Like I
Blocked it
yeah.
out. Oh my god.
I used
Okay.
my fist. I think I wrapped my fist in like in a sweater or something, and I like something like that. I
So
broke in,
you've now burglarized your own home.
burglarized my own apartment, came
Uh,
inside, cut myself on the way in. Glass, like, like cheap window glass is really cheap and it gets everywhere. So there's
right.
like, so now I call the leasing office. Someone broke into my apartment. I don't know where they are, but they tried tearing off the window and I need this to get replaced right away. And I call my wife. Oh my gosh, guess what happened? Oh my gosh, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Don't worry. And then now I'm like stuck with myself and I'm in the apartment finally and now it's Friday night alone, and do more damage until it's like, whatever, 2, 3 in the morning. I'm just like, oh my God, like this is exhausting. Like this isn't what I want to do. Like I know I need a change. And then I just like, I'm just gonna go to bed. I go to bed and wake up and then I'm like, wake up at the crack of dawn and I've been exercising a lot at this time. So I'm like, I go for a nice run and I'm just like, like praying to God. I'm just like, I really need, I just felt God say to me, you need a human connection. You need to
Mm,
connect with someone. Like you need to like meet someone that is in what you're doing in person.
got it. And this is Saturday, November 5th, 2022.
Yeah. So this is all right. Yeah, this is Saturday, November 5th, 2022. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, those meetings on Zoom, they did seem really good and all these people were talking about this great stuff but I felt like I felt like an outsider to the point because I didn't show my face. And now I'm like desperate. I'm like I don't want this to get any worse. And who knows, maybe I will meet someone in my industry that is in Los Angeles. Maybe I'll meet someone that is like me, that's around my age. I thought it was just going to be a lot of like older people that like probably lost a lot in their life and are just there because there's no other option. And so I find a meeting and it's at Cedar Sinai. I think it's at like 1 o'clock, and it said hybrid. So I was like, okay, so it's in person, but there's also some people on Zoom. I think that's
Mhm.
cool. So I go there, and I was just had a hoodie on, like didn't sleep much, just felt like a bag of bricks, legit. And I walk in there, and then there's only like 3 people there, and you were actually one of those people at that meeting. And then there were some people on hybrid, and yeah, how do they start the meeting? Hey, we have any newcomers? And like, yeah, I've raised my hand, and this other kid raises his hand, and I corrected. There was 5 people in the meeting,
Mhm.
2 newcomers, 1 woman, and then 2 men. You were being one of those men, and and they said this one kid, if he's like 22 or something, and then he got asked the 20 questions, and they're like, "Oh, what's your name?" I said, "Oh, my name's Joe. Have you done the 20?" Yeah, I did the 20 questions before. And they're like,
Mm,
"Oh, okay."
more lies.
More lies. And then, like that meeting goes on. And the other guy that was in that meeting is still someone that is just hyper involved in Gamblers Anonymous in the Los Angeles region and just someone I really look up to. And then the other person was you. And afterwards, I just said, I think it was to like everyone, like, hey, does anyone want to like grab a bite to eat after?
Mm,
Because I was just like, I only got to share for like
right.
2 minutes or something. Like, I got so much to talk about right now. And
So
even in my,
I'm gonna
yeah,
stop
go.
you for 1 second, Joe, because I want to tell the story to the audience. Because this whole meeting and why I was even there, this for me is in my 4+ years the moment of like higher power intervention as a singular moment in time of epic proportions that I've really never experienced. So I want to tell this story because so I'm driving. I had finished a meeting in the morning and I'm driving home on the freeway. And I knew that this meeting at Cedars existed, but I had just been to a meeting and it was a great meeting. I was feeling great. And all of a sudden, I was like, I think maybe I should go to that meeting at
Mm,
Cedars. But then I'm like, but I just was at a meeting and, I do have other stuff to do, but I don't know. It was like this powerful feeling that I should be there. And it was literally a point in the freeway where, and you know how it goes in LA, if you miss a exit, you might as well forget about it because you're going to now be stuck in this heinous traffic, and that's it. So I had this split second decision to make to either turn the wheel to the right and get off the off ramp
Mm.
or not. And I really, even to this day, distinctly remember this calling to go right and get off that freeway. And that's the reason I landed at that meeting that day. And that is when I walked in and saw Joe with his hoodie on. And I'm like, oh God, who's this guy? And he does not look well. I'm not sure where this is going. But then, yeah, picking up your story at the end where you're like, does anyone want to go get something to eat? Which for me was shocking because that's not what happens with somebody for the first time in a room, that they're asking other people afterwards to go get something to eat. So, yeah, pick it up from there. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, no, no, I love how you share that story as well, and I do think that is just one more way that you can call it mysterious, but I think God works in very intentional ways, and that is very just it's the such a beautiful way that we met and now have a great friendship slash brotherhood slash sponsorship, and so we end up going to it was Corner Bakery, just you and I, and even then I was like, I don't want this person to know that I really have a problem. I'm like, what do you want? I'm gonna buy it, and I'm like, and in my head I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, you just met this person, but I don't know, like, it felt compelled to. I was just like, I don't know, like, I just like that big shot mentality, like,
Right.
even though it's just a coffee or a pastry, or I think it was a muffin we had, but we talked, and I was just like, wow, that was unlike anything I've ever experienced, because you were the first person I actually like, other than that conversation with my sister, that was the first person I've ever talked to about this. And it was just crazy. Like, that feeling of like what got released was just, whoa, like, I need to keep being around people like this. Like, I need to like go back to something like this. And we exchanged numbers, and then you were like, hey, there's a meeting on this day or that day. And then I think I was like, okay, well, my wife comes back next week or something, so I'll go to another meeting, and went to another meeting, and like just started to like do the recovery thing. And November 5th, 2022 is my day of recovery. And then, like we just kept in touch, and we would talk on the phone occasionally. But then when my wife was home, it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to do recovery, because like she's going to be like, "Oh, where are you going? Why are you in a church basement
Mm-hmm.
on a Monday night?" Like, so obviously it just had to, what happened now was like what I touched on earlier, of like the master plan not being very masterful, and just the unwritten things just happening. And that's what started to happen. Just things just started to happen where Lydia starts, I start getting, I get 30 days, and that's great. You get the keychain, it feels good. And then she just like starts having these dreams, like over every night. She's having the same dream. And I'm like, she wakes up, even one night woke me up in the middle of the night. I'm like, what's going on? Are you okay? I just keep having these dreams. You're cheating on me. And I'm like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, really? And she's just like, yeah, like, it's so crazy because it just feels so real. Like, are you
Wow.
cheating on me? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I would never cheat on you. Like, I'm not cheating on you. And then, in my head, like, I would say that, and then I would be alone, and I'd be in the bathroom, and I would just look at myself, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't even look at myself. Like, who have you become? Like she's like, this is gonna blow up in your face. And at this point now, I'm starting to hear some stories occasionally when I go to a meeting, and you hear some war stories, and you hear some stories of people getting caught with their pants down from their partner and things like that. And I just say, I just want to get this out of the way. I think if maybe a year and a half, I don't know, like maybe a year, I can really, if I just stay diligent, I can just put it behind us.
Right.
And then, you and I, we keep talking, and I think I'm around like day 40, 41 at this time. And then it's a Friday night, just got off work. I'm like, hey, you got 20 minutes? You're like, yeah, I got 20 minutes. All right, let's talk. And then, the conversation shifts, and you're kind of like, hey, what, something you would always say, oh, have you thought about telling your wife? Or have you told your wife? And I'm like, why is this guy being so forward with me? Like, come on, let's just keep it general. Like, how you doing? How's your week? Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, how's recovery? Oh, so good. Everything's great. Yeah, I can't wait. Oh, it feels so amazing, right? Like, yeah, you're in those good feelings. It's the honeymoon phase of recovery, I'd say as well. You have people that actually care about you, that know your story, which is very rare for the compulsive gambler that lives a secret life, because nobody knows that person's story. And then, I still remember, I'm like, just finished filling up gas tank, and you're like, what if you told your wife? Like, wouldn't you want her to be a part of like your journey? Like, you're doing these things, and now the next thing is 60 days, and wouldn't you like want her to know what you're going through? Like, I think she would be so proud of you that you were even able to get to this point. And I was like, it's like, okay, I'm about to say I gotta go. Like, this is not what I came on the phone for.
You were
Like,
going to tell me to fuck off, is what you were going to.
and I'm like, no way. Like, I'm not doing that. My master plan is
Right.
not finished being executed
Right.
yet.
How dare you ask me to tell the truth?
But then I really like, you're like, just want to leave that with you. And I said, all right, yeah, like, okay. So then, like life goes on for another few days, and obviously I'm not going to meetings because she's home. And then I think what happens, I forgot what happened, but like she goes out of town and then she comes back, and then I just like, I think I went to a meeting, I saw you, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna like, I called you or something. I was like, I'm gonna tell her. And then you're like, what, like, okay, what made you want to like? And I was just like, these dreams are just really scaring me. Like, I really think she's gonna like find out, and I want to be the person to tell her. And I think that's something else you said. Don't you want to be the person that tells her instead of her finding out? And I say,
Right.
yeah, that. I said, I can't fight that. Like, that is so true. Like, if she's gonna divorce me, she'll divorce me. If she's gonna leave, she'll leave. But like, it's so much better if it comes from me versus if she finds out on her own. So now, yeah, I'll set the table, and it's 3 o'clock. I call her on my lunch break, and I'm like, "Hey, we have to talk tonight." And she's like, "Okay, what do you want to talk about? Is it good or bad?" I said, "It's really good, but it's also really bad." And she's like, and I said it just like that, and she's just like, "Oh, okay, like." Like, I don't even think she said, "Are you cheating on me?" Because I think she was really actually like, she was like, "Okay, this makes sense now."
Convinced,
Like,
right?
she's convinced. Like,
having these vivid dreams, and now you're about to
yeah,
shatter.
yeah.
So I don't even think I've asked you this. These times we've talked about those moments. Did you make the call because it was just easier than just like showing up face to face that night and being like, okay, now we need to talk? Like, it was almost like you had to tip your hat that something was coming. Was it just that, or no?
I think what it was just for months now, or not months, but for 40 days now, or 30 days now, I was just I was such an emotional wreck. Every day I would hear a song, and I would be like, working my job around other coworkers, and I would hear a song on my ear pod or on the radio, and just start crying. And I'm like, I have to step away, and like, I don't think anyone ever saw me cry, but like, I mean, I would just be destroyed. I mean, destroyed. Like at 1 o'clock. Like, it's not from chopping onions. It's from like legit, like the life I was living, and I just felt so much shame. Like,
Yeah.
how can I pretend like I'm this good husband, I'm this good son, I'm this good brother, I'm this good person, and I'm, like, yeah, you're covering your end of things financially, but you're not there. And then also there's a spiritual component of just like I know God sees everything, and he's just like, dude, wake up. Like, I'm here for you. I'm for you. So like, it's time to get over the hump. Tell her, Eric just told you, you got to tell her, like, tell her, like, what do you have to lose? And then I think it was just all those emotions of like, whenever you're about to make a big decision, you just feel all these things to keep you from doing it. And that's what was happening.
Yeah. Oh, man. I get it.
Yeah. So then that's why I said, hey, tonight we need to talk about it, because I knew if I put it out in the world,
you weren't going to go backwards.
I can't go backwards.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's what I thought it was, but I don't think I ever specifically asked you why you call it. All right. So your whole day is now leading up to what you know is going to happen. Were you like preparing your speech?
Yeah, I was just. I mean, I've been thinking about this speech for months now, and almost even. I mean, the gambling started in 2021 or 2020 or 2021, and then or 2020 it started, and then now it's 2022, and it's just I'm exhausted. I am just exhausted. I can't do this anymore, and I just can't wait to tell her. But I'm also like shaking. Like I was shaking when I asked her to marry me, but I was shaking like a cold kitten for this one. Like, and I walk in, I'm like, I'm gonna go shower. I go shower. She's on the couch. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go shower and then we'll talk. And she's sitting there and she's just like, okay, so what's going on? And I tell her, and she's just like,
what did you say?
And I just said, hey, I really want to talk. Thank you for being patient, and I'm sure you're going stir crazy right now, but like, I just want to tell you, like, over the past few years, I developed a gambling addiction. And she said, that's it? And I said, no, like over the past few years, I want you to know I started a gambling addiction. I think I'm a compulsive gambler. And she's like, okay, is that it though? And what do you mean? Like, that's horrible. And she's like, okay, so you didn't cheat on me? And I said, no, no, of course I didn't cheat on you. Like, why would I never cheat on you?
Well, you kind of were. Gambling was your mistress.
Yeah, gambling was my mistress. And yes, I was in that light. I was cheating on her. And then she just said, "Oh my gosh, like what? Like how long has this been happening?" And that's when I said, "Oh, for a few years now. Like it's kind of it's gotten out of hand. I have a plan, but it's going to take some time to pay it off." And I just feel I can't hide it anymore. And I was really scared about losing you, and that's why I didn't want to tell you sooner. But this is to be direct, this is the amount of money and this is how long it's going to take and this is what's going on. And she was just like gave me a hug, and I was just like, what? Like what I was very shocked, and I was just like, what? She's like, well, of course I'm really upset. Like there's definitely better things we could have done with that money, but like I don't know why you didn't feel comfortable enough to tell me any step of the way. And that's in that moment where I heard it. I heard that. And it's that polarizing thing that we do where we think that it's so much, like we think that something so small, like it's obviously huge, but I'm talking about from years ago. I thought this thing was so big that I couldn't tell her because she was going to be so disappointed that she would leave me. But meanwhile, I let this thing that was once small get so big to the point that now it was not only a $500 and $600 I lost one night in a resort room. It was now a large amount of money, but bigger than that, it was years of lies about how I was living and what I was doing and all this stuff. And I think that is the part that really, really destroyed her and that didn't happen initially, but it would happen days later and weeks later, where she's just like, I really don't know if I could trust you because you lied to me, and you didn't just lie to me once. You've lied to me for years, and I can't change that. Like that is the selfish person in a compulsive gambler, and that's the part that like I didn't know how to handle that, and that hurt a lot. But I knew I deserved every bit of it, and that's how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone listening right now who's gone through a partnership, a marriage, whatever relationship has gone through this scenario has in some way lived the story. So it's incredibly relatable. Thank you for like being so raw and reliving it again, because I know it hurts to relive it, but I also know, as we've talked about a lot, I think every time you talk about it, and especially in a forum like this where now these stories are going out to hundreds, thousands of people out there that may be listening beyond the people we know in the rooms. I think that's incredibly therapeutic and will continue to help you as you continue to. So, all right. So now she's kind of going through this like phase of, oh my God, who have you become, and how did you not trust your wife to be able to talk about this? So, kind of what starts to happen after that?
Yeah, so I think it was a little bit of just, or not a little bit, but it was a lot of me taking time when I was alone to think about how I'm going to tell her what. In the beginning, it was how do I curate this so that she's not, still doesn't think a certain way about me. But then it became, I think the more recovery I gained and the more I sat in those rooms and the more vulnerable my shares got, the more I was exposed to vulnerable shares, I just learned that, hey, stop sugarcoating things. Just be real with this person. And what I'm trying to restore is not a financial number. It's not a bank account, a dollar amount. It's my word. So I said to myself, whatever I need to do to make my word true again, and so she can gain that trust. It's not up to me to determine when it is. It's not a 1 year chip. It's not a 1 year coin. It's not a 2 year coin. It's not a bank account amount. It's not a we went on vacation together. It's legit like a very intimate thing that we're gonna share. And I'm no longer gonna push on that of like, well, I'm gonna gaslight you because I want this answer. I want it now. And I don't want you to actually know the truth of what happened. So it really was hard for us. It was hard for me in the beginning because I still was like white lying. I still wasn't telling the truth. And then I just kept getting caught up in those situations. But it got to a point where I just was so tired of just upsetting her to the point where I was just like, okay, you have nothing to lose. Just be real with her. And then that's eventually that happened. It took a long time though. Even in recovery, it took a long time of like sugarcoating that story.
Yeah, well, to see where you are today and watch you guys grow in this relationship, and you're like this perfect example for me of people in the program who truly recover. Of you turn the worst version of who you became as a human being because of the addiction, and you've turned it into the best version of who you are, and it shows across everybody you come across in the fellowship. And you're such a beacon of light and hope to everybody around you. It's a great tale of what happens when you finally reach the breaking point, and then you come to surrender, and then you start telling the truth, and then you get all the benefits out of diving fully in and believing. And you believed, and then you eventually did all the hard work to get to where you are now. So let me ask a couple recovery based questions that I think are really relevant to people, because you talked a lot about your faith in God. And I think we probably see the number one thing that people struggle with when they come into GA, and people who probably never find it, which was part of my story, is because of the fear of having to find a religious place or a God or a higher power. But for you, that was not ever an issue. But my question for you along those lines is, for those years when you were in the addiction, those couple of years, but you were still very faith based in your God. Have you been able to reconcile in the recovery work you're doing with the steps and all that, where you got lost as it relates to your relationship with God? And where do you find solace in that today?
Thank you for the kind words. And I do. What I'd say is, during the times of addiction, and even before, whenever maybe people pleasing and just attaching myself to too much work at times, I wasn't prioritizing my relationship with God, and I always felt that as a like feeling of like a big brother putting their hand on your shoulder and just saying like, "Hey, I'm here for you. I know you're like living the life you want to live right now." And what I was really doing was idolizing other things. And I wasn't idolizing my God. and I knew that, I was, maybe it's whatever it is. Maybe it's drinking too much one day, or maybe it's participating in like recreational marijuana, or maybe it's gambling, or maybe it's lying, and whatever it was, or maybe it wasn't being completely honest with my wife. Whatever it was, I was ignoring that feeling of like, hey, I'm here. I'm here for you to help get through the tough thing you're going through. But I was choosing a different route of numbing, of playing, even like fantasy football. Hey, like instead of going to bed, like let's just stay up all night and learn statistics
Mhm.
about the next great person in fantasy football, just so I could beat my friends for that $1,000 pot, right? It's not a lot of money. It's $100 buy-in, but like, to answer your question, it's very easy to reconcile with God because the Almighty. It's it's like He's just lives and breathes just repentance. Like, you just have to bring yourself,
Mhm.
and God forgives me. But like, to really walk it out, now that is something that just there isn't a requirement apart from just believing. But now, like how you walk it out, I think we've learned just in recovery. There's ways to recover where we are like, okay, this is what works for me, and this is also what I need to do.
Mhm.
And I think everyone's relationship with their higher power, it looks different. So so what works for me might not work for the other person. But there's just like some things that like we like that my wife and I like to try and incorporate as much as we can, that I feel really restore what I've done, but also like take that as a learning lesson and say, hey, I was building a foundation that was based off of lies. So I want to tear down that foundation and I want to build it from the ground up. And I don't care about having days. I don't care about anything. I just care about having an honest relationship with my partner. And then, and I, it's like this one very like one prolific Bible verse, like if God is for you, who could be against you? And it's like he does his best work in my biggest mess. And my biggest mess was that time. And it might not be gambling in the future, but like there's a really high chance that something else is going to be negative in my life. And I think what's different today than back then was like I know I could bring it to God instead of just saying, God, fix this for me. It's no, like as I'm making the decisions in the day to day, am I actually like, is God part of my soundboard? Like, or am I just coming to this person that I think is perfect after I've already did my mess? Like that works. You could always come, right? Like the door's always open. It's never going to shut the door, even no matter what you do. But like, I think where you level up is like whenever, we talk about third step prayer and we talk about these things that like even people that say they don't even believe, like they're praying, right? So like you take that second, you pray before you make a decision. And it's a reminder, I have negative thoughts, I have positive thoughts. I have the choice to act on either negative or positive.
Yeah, love that. And what would you say for you has been like one or two things that you've gotten out of recovery that you never saw coming? Because you just came in like all of us did, just praying you'd stop gambling, right? But what would you say is kind of taken you by storm that the program's given you in your life that kind of took you by surprise?
I would say it's humility more than anything.
Okay.
It's humility and it's conviction too. Conviction for for my life and what I want in my life. And I really was just, regardless if I wanted to admit it or not, I was just idolizing so many things in life: money, status, having a house at this age. And I wasn't happy with what I've achieved, but I worked so hard to achieve what I achieved. But I was letting everything else around me dictate my happiness. And it's like, I think you said it on Saturday, or someone said it. Comparison, or I guess it wasn't you, you weren't there, but comparison is the thief of joy. Someone said it on this
Yep.
Saturday. And
Yep.
it's
It's a good one. Hmm.
it's so true. Like why am I comparing myself to other people? So it's just that's really what I gained, and then having humility. Like I really learned the tales of humility and how beneficial it can be to have that. through year one in recovery.
And you obviously never relapsed again after that first in-person meeting, November 5th, 2022. Do you remember like a point in time where you think back of, I'm not even really thinking about gambling. Like I don't feel a compulsion to gamble. Do you kind of remember when that was for you in the journey?
Yeah, it wasn't early on. It wasn't really until we were in Japan. It was November of 2024. That was the first time I no longer had urges that would come and go. And I know for some people they're like, "Oh, after 6 months or after 9 months."
Mhm.
And there was periods of time where I was like, "Okay, this is I don't feel an urge anymore." Like, yeah, I can work a day and not feel the need to gamble. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have a thought most days. And the thought would pass, but I would say like in November, one day I was like, table was set. Lydia wasn't feeling great. I was alone. I wanted to go get dinner. We were like staying near all these like pachinko casinos, and I was just like, even I played out the tapes. I was like, oh, I could gamble right now and no one would ever know. But then I just like really thought about it, and I was like, oh, the thought of it was just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to do that. Like I just really was taken back to those moments
Mm.
of when I was active. And I was just, and then after that, like from then until today, which is, 9 months or 8 months and change. And there's been maybe one or two thoughts occasionally whenever there's a lot on my plate. But really, it's just been very much minimized as of lately. And I really do thank the tag team of God working with so many different people all over the world, specifically for me, my proximity being in Los Angeles, and what these rooms have provided for me of just having a place 7 days a week that you can share and release and hear other people that are walking through the same exact thing you're walking through, just in a different story format.
Yeah, I think that's a great tale of what these rooms do for us when we believe and we're willing to do the work. So keep showing up. What would you say? Is there like one thing right now on your radar of recovery that you're like, yeah, I know I want to work on that more? Like, is there kind of a missing thing, or not necessarily missing, but it's just kind of like it's out there, whether it's a time issue and you just can't quite get to it, that kind of thing. Is there something that you want to be working towards right now?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing I would want to work towards is just finding more time to do step work through the day to day, or like through a week, through a busy week, instead of which what I think is very common early on in the first years, and it could be even up to 5 years in the program where there's so like the compulsive gambler attaches a lot of pressure to even step work because we almost kind of have that like perfectionist thing where we just want it doesn't even have to be perfectionist, but it's we want to do all of something. We don't like if I do step one, I want to do all of step one. If I start step two, I want to do all of step two. If I do step four, I want to start all of step four. But it's like people that read books often versus people that read books a little bit at a time. Someone that reads a book all the time, they just read like 10, 15 pages and then they come back to it later and then they come back to it later. So I think the big thing I would like to work on in recovery isn't so much the connection. I think that part is something I really love, but it's the step work and finding time to spend the 10, 15 minutes whenever it's available instead of thinking, oh, I'm going on a 4 hour flight. I'm going to stay up for 4 hours and bang out a lot of step work. So that's probably the biggest thing.
So, what would you tell the person who comes in? I mean, we see newcomers routinely, right? But just out there listening right now to this podcast, what do you tell the person who's struggling to get to where they can get themselves to day one and figure out the impossible, which seems impossible at the time, which is how do I stop gambling? Because especially with the amount of young people that are coming in their teenage years, in their early 20s now, because of what's happening out there in the gambling industry with all the legalization and the online betting. What's your messaging for that person who just doesn't know how to stop and start recovery?
I think my message to them is, like first, it's what you've done so far has gotten you to where you are. And just like when you gamble, sometimes you need to switch it up to find winning results. So just try switching up what you've been doing and get into a room and just see what happens. And I would start with that to get them in, because I'm sure a newcomer is going to feel like, I don't want to spend my time doing that. I just want to pay off the debt. And then I would like wrap it up with like, or the second part of it is kind of, there isn't a financial amount of money that can't be overcame, but money is just a small reason of what actually caused you to gamble. But you're going to lose everything else in life if you don't prioritize like yourself and how, like in acknowledging you have a problem. And that's really what I found is you know, everyone will probably end up making more money in time, but it's not a money thing. It's a life thing.
Yeah, I think one of the great many slogans is I didn't have a gambling problem, I had a living problem. And that shows up very differently for all of us. But yeah, I think it mostly boils down to everybody. It's not really about money. I mean, to some extent, of course, the financial wreckage that occurs because of it, but it's typically always something else in life that gets us into it. And then as it evolves, you just get, sunk deeper and deeper. And you told this amazing tale of your reality of how it escalated so fast. You never really gambled other than mildly like anybody else. And all of a sudden, boom, in a 2 year period, it destroyed your life. It destroyed everything about who you were, how you identified as a human being, all the qualities you had in you. And that's what the addiction does. It's a great story because you have that ultimate redemption where you finally got to the right place and now you're thriving in so many areas of your life because you're doing the next right thing. Every day you show up and do the next right thing. And I think it's just awesome where you are and the work you've done now in less than 3 years, Joe. It's just really amazing. And I'm so grateful that I turned right that day. And I still get emotional about it because I know what can happen when you don't meet the right person at the right time. You just don't know. And who knows what would have or not happened had that not occurred that day. I'm just so really, really grateful. And you are doing so much for program in Los Angeles and touching so many lives. And I love Lydia so much and watching you guys grow in this relationship and careers. It's just awesome. So, just keep doing what you're doing. And I love you so much. Any final parting words you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Oh, I thank you so much, and just I really do think that just everybody has something in life that they are called to do, and it's very obvious that you've been called to connect people and share people, and your passion for recovery, not only in your life but in other people's, is extremely apparent, and I think it's something that we all love about you, and to leave it with to leave everybody with something is like, you're not alone in your addiction. And even if you just go to a recovery room for no other reason than to just have a place to talk about how you're feeling because you can't do it anywhere else, it's worth taking that step, making that time, because I've never found anywhere else in my whole life or a group of people that is similar but different in any other room than being in a 12-step room for what I suffer with. That is just so refreshing. So I just can't say it enough. If you have a gambling addiction, or if you even think you have a gambling addiction, surround yourself with other compulsive gamblers, because there's a lot of us out there and we want to be there to help you out.
Can't say it better than that. Well, thank you again so much, Joe, for doing this. And I know this is going to help so many people. For anybody out there, as always, if you have any questions or comments for either me or that I can pass along to Joe, as always, you can email the show at. But that's a wrap on experience number 20 with Joe. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Gambling Recovery Lounge. And we'll be talking to you again soon. Have a great day.